Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being with us for our webinar this evening. We have a wonderful adoption story to share with you, a very special guest, and this is Lifetime Adoption, and we're here to share with you more about the adoption experience through the eyes of this adoptive mom who is with us this evening. And my name is Kim King, and I'm one of the adoptive family coordinators here at Lifetime. Hosting this evening is Libby Deniston, who will be popping on here in just a second. I am going to just share a little bit of housekeeping, ways to get in touch with us if you are brand new to Lifetime, not sure where to get started. Of course, you may have seen our website, lifetimeadoption.com, and you might have gone to the page where we have our application, and that's at lifetimeadoption.com/apply. And you're welcome to just fill that out. It should be pretty streamlined to where you can fill it out in just a short amount of time, maybe 15 minutes or so. And then our review committee can take a look at that. Our applications coordinator can get in touch with you and let you know what next steps to expect as you explore a little further here at Lifetime Adoption. So you can fill out your free application online, and there's no obligation with that. It's at lifetimeadoption.com/apply, and that is a great little key to opening the door to some more questions and exploration with Lifetime and a coordinator here to help guide you and share more of what we see in our adoptions, the reality of what we're working with birth moms and families and everything, and just kind of tailor fit that information, the answers to your questions, to your specific needs and family characteristics and where you are in the process. You can also inquire if you just want to start out by getting some basic information sent to you. You can call 1-800-923-6784, and we can speak with you about kind of where you are and answer some questions, send you some info. You can email apply, APPLY, at lifetimeadoption.com, and that's a great way to start getting some information sent to you and future webinar invites sent to you as well. You can also join us on Facebook. I really encourage families to join us on Facebook. We have a very positive, healthy, supportive, current page. Our social media presence is just really kept current, and I really love that about Lifetime, and it's a great place to go for some tips and guidance and to connect with other people who are somewhere along the path where you are, or maybe have gone forward a few steps, and you can kind of learn from their experiences like we're doing tonight on the webinar. So you can find us on Facebook under a Lifetime Adoption Center or Lifetime Adoption Center, or by typing in facebook.com/open.adoption. That's facebook.com/open.adoption. So I really encourage you, if you're brand new to Lifetime, to fill out your application or at least start requesting some info so we can help out a little bit, get to know you a little better. And if perhaps you already have applied and have heard back, of course, we'll be letting you know your next steps. So just keep an eye on your phone and email and follow those next steps. We're really great about step-by-step guidance. So Libby, with that, I will hand it right over to you, and we'll get started on tonight's story.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I just want to welcome everyone again, and I'm excited to have tonight's webinar guest back. Some of you may even recognize her name because we tried to have her on a webinar a few months ago in the middle of summer when we hosted a panel Q&A of 3 moms who were here to answer your questions, and we had technical difficulties, which we are not unfamiliar with here around the webinar team. So sometimes things happen and the show continued on, but Allie was really she was actually kind of bummed because she wanted to come on and encourage all of you because she remembers what that's like to, something that stood out when I was preparing with her was that she said there were times when I just wondered, am I even meant to have a child? And I know that a lot of you probably could identify with that no matter what phase of your adoption you're in right now. Maybe today you're just thinking, is adoption for us? Is this the path I'm headed toward? Or maybe you're actively waiting to adopt and you've had that same thought too. Are we even meant to have a child? Am I even meant to be a mom? So I'm excited to have her here because I know her heart is really hoping to be a help and an encouragement, especially this time of year as we head into the holidays, to just encourage you to remember that there is a meant to be plan for you. And when you hear her story, that you'll just get to see how this little boy was truly meant to find their family. So, Allie, I want to thank you for persevering that last time and being willing to come back today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back and excited to share my story and hopefully help people that were in a similar situation to us and encourage everyone. I know the holidays are especially tough when you're going through this journey, so I'm happy to answer any questions and share our story and hopefully encourage someone tonight. So thank
Yes.
you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, it can be really exciting. Even as I was putting together your slideshow tonight, I was looking at this and thinking, you know, there's some photos in here that I think are so sweet because it's what everyone pictures doing with a baby or a toddler or their child. You know, they want the pumpkin patch pictures that they see their friends have. They want we're in the hospital with our newborn in that blanket that every single newborn across the U.S. seems to have from the hospital. You know, like they want to see that. And I was just looking at these and kind of having this fresh reflection, I guess, that how just special it must be even to look back on these photos and think, I never thought I'd get to have that photo. I never thought I'd get to have that memory. Or I always wondered when it was going to happen. And so I hope tonight, as people are seeing these photos, if you're online, you'll see them, or hearing your story, that they will, especially this time of year when it gets easy to think, am I ever going to get to go to the toy department and pick out my kid's wish list? Like, is that ever going to be my turn, or is it always going to be nieces and nephews or friends? That you can see these and realize that tonight's webinar guest was once in your shoes, and she did everything possible to keep following the call towards the child she felt was meant to join their family, and that can be you too. So I hope that it encourages you to know if it works for them, the process can work for you. So Kim was talking about the application process, and we actually had a question pop up that said, do you have, you as an adoptive mom, looking back on where you started a couple years ago, do you have any recommendations for people who are just on the application or on the the pre-ready side, like they're just kind of maybe gearing up or thinking about it?
Yeah, whenever I originally started looking into it, I basically Googled adoption and kind of tried to get as much knowledge as I could because I wasn't very familiar with it. I just knew that that was a possibility for our family to, grow. And when I Googled it, I actually, Lifetime was somehow the first Google click that I clicked, and they were established the year that I was born. So for some reason, I was just instantly drawn to it. And then I watched a video about the way it got started and how Marty basically went through a lot of the things that I was going through. And I just thought, this is where inside it just felt like that was where I was supposed to contact and just get more information. So from there, I just filled out the information and contacted them, and immediately I just felt at home. I felt like all of the information I was given was so helpful and really gave me the knowledge I needed to start the process. And so I was actually going through my last IVF cycle, and I just kind of knew after going through so many that I think that this is my next step in my journey personally, was adoption. And so I actually talked to Kim, and I was ready to sign up and everything and sign the dotted lines, and I found out I was pregnant. So I was like, well, I'm pregnant, so I don't know, what's going to happen. And she said, well, just, keep me in mind that you're in my prayers. And that was kind of when I was telling you about the dream I had, and that led me to just know adoption was for us. And we ended up 2 weeks later miscarrying, and the next day I signed and we went with Lifetime. So I don't know if that answered the question, but.
Well, no, I think you did. I really appreciate that, because that's a common question that people have too, is, well, what made you choose, Lifetime, or the direction that you did choose? But so you said that you were going through IVF, but that you'd also been through miscarriages before. Is that right?
Yes. So just kind of to a little bit about our story. We've been together for 11 years, and he has 2 sons. And so when we got married, I've been in their lives a long time, but we always talked about having another child and just, a child that we could raise together from just birth and watch them grow in that way. And the boys were very supportive of it. So we decided to try to grow our family through IVF, and just through misfortunes, I guess, we went through 2 IVF cycles and ended up having 10 embryos, and we went through chemical pregnancies, and then we went through we were having twins, and we lost both of those, and then we lost 2 more. But the very last time, I was just like, I think that I just mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, just I can't do this anymore. I was like, I just need to look into other options, and adoption was already pretty strong on my heart. And I think I told you about the dream I had, and that pretty much just gave me peace to know exactly what I was supposed to do, and that this all happened because it was leading me and my heart to adoption.
Well, I mean, if you feel like sharing that dream, I got chills when you shared it, because I've heard these kinds of testimonies from other adoptive parents before, especially when you're walking in faith and you're praying for a child. You're looking for these signs, like, how do I know I'm on the right path? How do I know I'm headed towards my dream? Because, Scripture says, like, God wants to give good things, and all good things come from above, and he doesn't make miscarriage, but you walk through it and hopefully deepen in your faith and stay trusting in there that there's going to be good ahead through that loss and grief. But I have heard so many times just so many unique little ways that adoptive parents knew they just had that kind of peace and that confidence come over. And I think what's so special about what you told me, Allie, was that you were actually pregnant and you'd already had miscarriages before, so I'm sure that was looming over you, like, is it going to happen again? Am I going to lose this pregnancy again? But if you want to share the dream, we would love to hear it.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I was about 6 weeks pregnant, and I had a dream one night, and it was freezing cold, and I was sitting on a bench, and I just had a dream that, well, earlier in the dream, I had lost the baby that I was carrying, but then fast forward in the dream, I was sitting on this bench, and it was freezing cold, and a woman handed me a child wrapped up in like a purple fluffy blanket. It was clear as day, and it was my adoptive child. And when I woke up, it was the oddest sense of peace. Like, I knew I was about to, like, just inside, I knew I was going to lose the baby that I was pregnant with, but I knew what I was meant to do, and that was to adopt. And as crazy as it sounds, it just probably gave me the most peace I had had in 4 years. I just knew that was inside me, that was my, like, God-given sign that this is the path that our journey is leading us to. And I think it was about like a week or 2 later that I actually lost the baby. And literally the next day, I called back Kim and told her, we're ready to go with this. Like, there was no doubt in my mind. I just knew that was what we were meant to do.
It gave me shivers again. Because that's what makes each story so unique, are these little keys, these little drops, these little details along the way that couldn't maybe happen that way for any other family, and that's just because there's a story for each of you. But some women would say, "Oh, I've totally had that, but my husband thought I was nuts." I mean, did your husband Jason think, whatever, like, you're pregnant, we're going to see this through, like, we're not there yet? Or was he more like, was he kind of ready to? Because you mentioned, I was sort of at a point of, I can't keep going through this anymore. Was he feeling like that too? And was he ready for adoption at the same time?
So after I had that dream, the next day I told him and my best friend, and I was like, I just know it was. I know this sounds crazy, but this is like I know this is going to happen. And he was like, oh no, like he was just kind of like, oh, stay positive, everything's going to be okay. And I think that he knew inside that there was a good possibility because of our losses before. Like we were both pretty guarded anyways, but he was very supportive, and he was like, we're going to do whatever we need to do. We're going to have a baby. Like that was our mentality the whole time. Like it wasn't, we knew we were determined. We were never going to give up. We were going to make sure that we had a baby. And so
Yeah.
he was my biggest support through everything, and really helped me through all of the struggles that we had. But he was basically supportive whenever I told him originally about adoption, and especially after that, then the day after we miscarried for our last time, and he was on board and ready to go. And we ended up finishing all of our paperwork and home study, and we really got on it and focused for a straight month on specifically that, and we were completely home study ready and active within a month, just because we were so determined. So.
Well, and that's a big question that people have is how did you really chunk that out and get it done so quickly? Because some people, it really kind of intimidates them when they drag it out, or they feel like sometimes I think the fear of all that paperwork and getting ready to adopt makes them never even start the process. So what would you say to someone who's thinking, yeah, I wish I could get it done. It's not happening, or I don't know what to do. Like I don't know how to push this forward.
I think the biggest help for us was the binder that we got and the extensive to-do list, and we basically went through each and kind of tiered it by what would be the easiest to knock out and what may take a little bit more time. So the things that we knew would take more time, we focused on first, just to make sure that we got the process going, like our home study and the background checks and the physicals and the animals needing to get physicals and everything like that. And basically I made him a list and I made me a list, and we just knocked it out and really just focused and stayed organized, and each did our part to make sure that our to-do list was checked off so that we'd have everything in order for our home study. So I think that organization, and teamwork and organization, I think really helps, and not to get overwhelmed, just not to look at it as a whole, and maybe just, even if it's like 5 things a week or something like that, that you can just look at individually instead of trying to look at it as a whole and getting overwhelmed and then not doing it at all. One thing a day is better than, 0.
That's so true. You sound kind of like Marty. I'm sure Marty would say something like that. But that's true, because I have a tendency, and maybe some of you can relate, like I have a tendency to think, I'm going to have to do the whole list. But then I have to remember, no, I have a partner in this. I have a husband. I have a spouse who is also capable of checking this list off with me, and involving both of you in it, and rather than just one taking it on and getting overwhelmed. But the teamwork, I love that you brought that up, because we don't hear that. I'm sure it happens a lot, but we don't always hear that emphasized. So I really appreciate that. You mentioned that, so you started you're a blended family. So you mentioned that when you met Jason, he had kids. And there was a question that came in that said, how do you prepare your biological child for your plans to adopt? So you mentioned that they were on board, that they were ready and excited, for you guys to continue growing your family. But did you have to have a big conversation, or did you feel like maybe because they were a little bit older, it was easier to explain rather than them being 3 and 4 or something like that?
I would say so. And for the most part, I was in their lives for over they were 7 and 9 when we met and when I came into their lives. So it wasn't until about 6 or 7 years later that we just talked to them and said we wanted to have a child, and they were very supportive and excited. And then they went through the process of like getting excited that I was pregnant, and then they went through the sadness of knowing that I lost it. So when we told them about adoption, they were really just excited. They were also, you know, they're teenage boys, so they're just like, oh, okay, cool. You know, it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, there was no drama or anything. They were just excited, and they were very supportive and helped. Like in the home study, our home study lady interviewed them, and she was just saying how sweet they were and how excited they were. So I know every family isn't this, you know, that easy to maybe tell them, but I just felt like I was very blessed that they were excited to have a little brother or sister.
Yeah, well, and I think what you said, though, is key. Maybe it's just because what I'm getting off of you is that you didn't make it a big deal. So maybe that's the key is, as parents, your kids are going to respond to the way you present things and the way you react to things. And maybe it's more that you and Jason just didn't make it this giant, big to-do, like, now there's going to be another baby and, you know, this big old thing. Instead, it was, okay, instead of giving birth to this baby we've been trying to add to our family, we're going to go find this child through adoption. And they were just like, oh, all right. So maybe that's it. It's just being honest, but also not making it, you know, this big presentation, this big change in the family. So I appreciate you answering that. There was another question too that came in while we're kind of talking about those beginning stages, because I want to make sure that we do talk about, you know, actually meeting your son. But there was a question even just about, do you have any tips for funding adoption, or ways that you helped to gather the resources to just cover the costs involved with adoption?
Well, I think that our biggest help was probably just our family that was so helpful in, you know, helping us with our needs. And then we didn't necessarily budget for it because, like I said, we went through IVF as well, so that's very costly. And we just budgeted what we could, and then, you know, we had to use credit cards and things like that. And then there are resources for different credits that I think there's a long sheet that comes in the workbook. So we just went through that and just tried our best to use any resource we could. We didn't do a GoFundMe or anything like that, but I probably would have, looking back, maybe tried to do that just to get a little bit more resources. But
Yeah,
I don't know if that helped.
it's different for every family. No, but
Yeah.
I'm glad what you said, because that's the truth, is even if your insurance covers IVF or any kind of fertility treatment, it doesn't usually cover all of it, and that becomes a lot. That's a huge responsibility, and so a lot of families, I'm sure, identify with that. Like, yeah, we went through that, and I wasn't sure where we were going to come up with the means to adopt. But you know, I wrote down just talking with family and accepting help. You know, I think sometimes even it's just trusting that you will come, it will come together. So you used, it sounded like, a combination of different efforts, which is really common. It's not just we did one thing and had everything at one time. You know, it was more like, no, we planned, and just like you did with your home study and all the to-do list, it sounded like this again was something like, no, okay, we're going to look into that, I'll look into this, and you take it one step at a time. And what Allie's referring to, like the binder she mentioned and the lists, you know, what Lifetime offers is help. Like, we're not just saying, oh, great, come on board and have it all figured out. You know, we're offering you resources that have helped other people fund adoption. We're offering you tips to help you make your profile. Like, there's just so much, which probably can feel a little overwhelming, but at the same time, most families tell me it's kind of reassuring, like, wow, you know, they've really covered everything. So even though I'm really saturated and there's a lot right now. I know it's here, and I know that they will help direct me. So that's what she's talking about, and it's just so good to ask questions too. So when you're researching to say, hey, do you have suggestions for where I fund my adoption fees, or do you have a home study referral? You know, we give home study referrals to people who come into our program. So these are some of the things she's referencing, in case that was confusing at all. But really good. I really appreciate you talking about some of this front end stuff, because I know that we do have a mixed audience, and I think that these are really important topics. So thanks for spending some time here with that. So I do have a picture up here of your little peanut. Was this the day that he was born?
Yes. So that was when we were able to bring him into the nursery, and that was our first time to be alone with him. So that was a few hours after he was born.
And he was born out of state. How far did you have to travel?
Basically across the country, from Alabama to Nevada.
You know, I would say most of our adoptions are usually out of state. I mean, did you struggle with that idea at first, or was it like, whatever, we'll do whatever we have to do to get our baby?
I would have gone to China. I didn't care. I was like, as soon as we got the call, and it was 1 a.m. our time, and I woke up Jason and I said, we've got to go. And we caught a plane within like 3 hours from Atlanta, and we're on a plane. So
oh my goodness.
It didn't matter where it was. We were just going to get there.
So, I mean, that's what we were talking about yesterday. So part of Allie's story, it was pretty much down to a last minute adoption. It's a little different than like over Thanksgiving last weekend. Actually, we had a woman call from the hospital in labor. She chose a family, and then she had to choose another family because that first family wasn't ready to move forward. But that, you know, it was truly like we'd never heard from her before, and we're moving forward right now over a holiday weekend. And with Allie's story, they at least had the benefit of a couple days heads up, but it was pretty much last minute. So here you're just waiting to be chosen by a birth mother, and then you get a call from Lifetime. Was it like during the day, or let's just talk about it.
So our story with that, so of course when you're waiting, like every phone call is just like, if it's not a number you know, you're just like, oh, I hope it's Lifetime. I hope it's Lifetime. This particular day, I was sitting in my office having probably the most mundane day, like just thinking about, you know, it's almost time to leave. Just a very regular day, and I had a phone call, and I was sitting at my desk. It was a Thursday afternoon, and she basically said, you know, I have a birth mother that has chosen y'all, and she is going to the hospital right now to have the baby, and some more information. But then she was just basically asking me, like, are you ready to move forward with this? And I instantly said, yes, we're ready. And she said, do you need to call your husband? I said, oh, okay. I don't really, but I will. And he was actually out of town working in Mississippi. So I said, okay, yes, I'll call him. I'll give him a call and make sure it's okay. So I called him, and I told him, and he said, yes. So I called her immediately and then I said, you need to get back to Alabama, because he was in Mississippi working. So he packed up and started heading home, and I called Veronica back, and I told her we are good to go. Does she want to talk to us and other families, or, you know, what's the next steps? And she said, no, she just wants to talk to y'all. Like, if you say yes, that is, you know, that's her decision, which was a huge relief, because I just, you know, I was so excited. I didn't want the possibility of, you know, not fulfilling, like, you know, with a group of people she may be considering. So anyways, we said yes, and she gave me her information and things like that. And the birth mom actually contacted me via Facebook and just introduced herself and told me how excited she was that we were going to be the parents of her child, and I was just elated. And we talked back and forth for hours, and she kept me up to date with her hospital visit, and they ended up telling her that she wasn't having the baby that day, that it was going to be the following week, that they were going to schedule the C-section. So we kind of kept in touch throughout that and just planned on it being a week from then. Well, the next day she said she was just kind of feeling very bad cramps and things like that, and she was going back to the hospital, and we just kept in touch. And so it was, let's see, Thursday was when we got the call, and then in the middle of Saturday night, so I guess early Sunday morning, she said, I'm back at the hospital, it's happening tonight, and that was when we went into mode to get there, and he was born. So we got the call March 2nd, and he was born March 5th.
So again, going back to your dream too, because I know Nevada. I mean, you weren't too far from our Northern California office actually, but March is a pretty chilly month up there. So, I mean, did that come back to mind as you're thinking, it's March and my dream, I was freezing cold,
The craziest thing on the plane ride there, they had one of the worst winter storms that they've ever had, and it was like just covered in snow. And when we were pulling up on the plane, like you could just see everything was covered in snow. It was it was crazy. And then we got there, and it all the nurses were telling us how it was like the craziest winter storm they had had in forever. So it did definitely bring me back to my dream.
Oh my goodness. I mean, how reassuring to have those details come back to mind too. Like, okay, no, I've heard this before, because there is that fear. Okay, I've been chosen by a birth mother, and I know that she told you she was excited that you agreed to match with her. But there's still that idea of, well, what if she changes her mind? And that sometimes what I hear from adoptive parents is that they just had this piece, again, like, no, I know this is going to be my baby, and they just learned to trust her. How did you walk through those fears of, okay, we're saying yes, and it's all last minute, and it's happening so fast. What if she changes her mind?
Yeah, initially I was just so excited to get there and just see him and hold him and just be with him and meet her, because I'd never met her before. And it probably wasn't until a couple days later, when it was coming close to just her signing the paperwork, that I had a pit in my stomach that, this could all be, taken away. But I just had to keep reminding myself, like, the situation, it's not all about me, it's about her as well. Like, this is a sacrifice that she's giving up, and that she has every right to change her mind, essentially. Like, she's the reason I would even get this blessing. Like, I tried not to have any negative feelings towards her, because she was literally the greatest blessing I've ever had in my life. So she instantly became family, and I wanted to make sure she was okay too, and just really put myself in her position and not worry about myself so much. I just wanted him to be okay, I wanted her to be okay, and I wanted us to be okay. And it all worked out. I'm not going to say I never had like deep pits in my stomach that I was going to lose him, but I tried to reel it in and just understand from everybody's point of view, like, the actual situation that was happening, and the complexity of it all, and how, her heart was breaking and mine was being full. So I just wanted to make sure I kept that in mind and not only thought about myself.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, did that surprise you? Number one, did it surprise you that she actually seemed excited that you agreed to match? Because like you said, she's going through such a difficult time, and it is a loss to place a baby for adoption. But at the same time, these women that we help, these mothers, when they choose adoptive parents, sometimes they feel relieved, like, okay, I have a plan, I know where this baby's going now. But there's still a lot of really heavy emotion involved. But number one, did it surprise you that she was excited? And then number two, did it surprise you how much you grew to care about her in such a short amount of time that you started to put her needs and her well-being, in front of your own?
Yeah, I think I grew a lot as a person. Just um, I feel like a lot of times it's easy to just think about how you're feeling, and what that you would lose the baby, that you would go home empty-handed, that you would just think about myself instead of thinking about what she is sacrificing to make sure that her child has the life that she really wants him to have. And it was just a huge eye opener, and I was just so thankful that she trusted me enough without even, I mean, really knowing me, besides for my profile book and, our conversations online, that she trusted me enough with, the biggest role of my life is to take care of this little boy. And so it was just very humbling for me.
It, See, we love that we get an opportunity to work with adoptive parents like you, because that's our heart too, and we know that it can feel so awkward in the beginning. Like, what do you mean you want me to stay in touch with a stranger? You don't know who she is yet, but as soon as you know who she is, I would say I honestly can't think of any adoptive parent I've worked with who just did not care about that child's birth mother, that they started, some of them even felt the grief along with her. Like, I'm sorry you're in this position and you don't get to take this beautiful baby home, but I'm so grateful that I get the opportunity to be this baby's mama. That it's such a mixed emotional experience for both sides, to have the relief and the joy, but also with the sorrow and the grief. That's why we say it's so bittersweet. But I'm so glad that you could bring that up, because I think that's the best number one tip when it comes to adoption today, is not making it all about the baby, but remembering that there's this mother in the mix, and the only way that this adoption is happening is because of her. And when you can put her first and see if she's okay, what can I do for you? Are you okay? It goes so far with these amazing moms that we help. They often call and say, I was surprised. Like, I thought that, they just kind of forget about me or whatever, but she was like asking if she could bring me lunch, or she was holding my hand during delivery, or whatever it is. It just blows them away how much love they feel, because of that connection, and because you're willing to just put yourself out there, and experience it. But so you did mention it was a last minute adoption, but up until that point, about how long did you guys wait to be chosen by a birth mother?
It was about 7 months total from the time that we started until we were holding him.
So I've heard from some adoptive parents, that it really didn't matter how long they waited, the wait was still hard. Did you feel like the wait was really hard for you?
um, yes and no. At the beginning it was, because I was just trying to control it all so much myself, and have the best video and have the most viewed videos and profiles, and like make sure everything's so perfect, and uh trying to control it myself. But once I let go and just let God handle it, I feel like I was actually at church one Sunday and a song came on, and it just really, it was Take Courage My Heart, and it, like, I literally just started sobbing in church, and I was like, I really just need to let it go, let God handle it, just try to do everything I can that I'm supposed to, and then just let it happen. And when it does, I'll be ready. So it was towards the end that it actually got easier for me to deal with it physically, or not physically, but emotionally, of not dwelling on it as much. Like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? I just kind of let it go, let God handle it. I prayed a lot, and then it happened once I did that.
Yeah, I like to say it's like a surrender, and I wish so much there was a formula for it, because I hear that, usually what I see over all my years here, there's always this moment of surrender, right before the match comes. And I wish I could give people a recipe for that, like how to make the surrender happen so you get matched, but it's such a personal it's just such a personal thing, and it's this moment like you described when you just go, okay, I've done everything I can, and you kind of hand it over. And I think for some people, I'm the type of person, I had to hand things over multiple times. I had to surrender multiple times.
Yeah.
Like,
It's tough.
I always say, like, yeah, you drop stuff at the altar and it sticks to your shoe on your way home, like you got to bring it back. But I always hear that. And so if you're waiting and you're thinking, yeah, I'm not there, like I wish I was there, maybe that's a place where you can pray about that, or journal about that, or reflect on, what am I holding so close that I just need to trust the process and trust that I am good enough to be picked by a birth mother. Did that doubt ever come to mind? You mentioned something to me. You said, I remember going through the times when I wondered, am I even meant to be a mom? Like,
yeah.
how did you get yourself out of those moments of doubt?
I don't really know, honestly. I remember just always being like, there's so many amazing families. There's just, what makes me special above anybody else to be chosen by a birth mom? All of these people, I would watch everybody's videos and everyone's profiles, and it's like, everyone's so great. Like, how am I ever going to be the one that is chosen? And then, I don't know, I try to just snap myself out of it and say, I know that I will give every ounce of my heart and soul to this baby. I'm bound and determined this is going to happen. To just try to snap out of it and just know that, looking back, I wish I would have seen the bigger picture. Like, I remember people getting matched. I was like, what do they have that I don't? Seeing the stories. Oh, they were matched. Like, what did they do that I didn't do? But as soon as I met Austin, it literally all made sense. I was like, this is why. Like, this was literally my destiny, was to be this little boy's mom. Like, there's no other person. This is why I went through everything. This is why it took the amount of time it did. Like, he is literally, like, just the second I saw him, he just healed my heart.
Oh, you're giving me shivers again. I think that's what people need to hear tonight too. You mentioned earlier, you remember the holidays were hard. You went through miscarriages. That's a loss in itself.
Yeah.
And to now sit back and say, I know all of that was leading to this little boy, and that he's healed your heart. What a powerful statement. Like, what an amazing thing to look back on and just know that it was meant to be. We had a comment come in here. Thank you, Chazarek. She says, I feel like I'm losing hope. At what point do you say, okay, is this enough? Or you just start to feel like, okay, this is enough. I know you didn't wait, once you were ready to adopt, you didn't wait, 2 years. You didn't wait 18 months or even a full year. Like, it was 7 months, which can be kind of an average time, but that's something we can't always predict. I've worked with families that had amazing adoption profiles and great videos. Like you mentioned earlier, you were trying to make sure you had an awesome video, and they had their home study ready fast, and they're very open in preferences. They're going out to potential birth mothers all the time, and they're still waiting. And even sometimes we sit back and say, what else can we do to get this family, where they want to be? But we can't always super manipulate or control the timing. So, maybe you didn't have a point of, with your adoption, you may not have had okay, this is enough, but I think you went through that with the fertility, with the IVF and the miscarriages. You said that earlier, that it was like, this is enough. What would you say to someone who says, I feel like I'm just losing hope? At what point should I give up?
I think you should never give up. If I would read this quote over and over, and it said, if you can't go a day without thinking about it, then, keep pursuing it. And that was my mentality. Like, I was never going to give up. you know, I did stop IVF, but my ultimate goal was to have a baby, and that was something I was never going to let that go. Like I was going to make sure that I kept my hope and I kept my faith, and I stopped worrying about my timeline, and I really started going to church more, praying more, like writing down all of my feelings just to kind of let it out in that sense, because it's kind of a lonely situation when you can't talk to people about, you know, exactly how you're feeling. Just I would keep a journal in my notes section on my phone, and just anytime I started feeling that doubt, I would just fill it up, and I'd write my prayers down in there, and just really just know, like, I'm not giving up faith. This is going to happen. And one thing I would like to say for anyone that, you know, if the timing is taking a really long time and you just think, like, this may not happen. I went through the same thing. And the second you hold your baby, which is going to happen, you're going to understand why it took the exact amount of time that it did, because you will never be able to imagine anything else. Like, that was what God sent you. That is what was meant to be. And you're going to look at them and just be in awe that you went through that, but it will heal your heart, because you'll know that's exactly who is supposed to come into your life.
Thank you. I think that is speaking to some people tonight. I see a lot of comments saying I relate to her, or yes, you know, and so good, thank you. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's even the point that you made about there's just some things I couldn't really talk about with other people, and it might just be because they just really didn't get it. It's not that they didn't care, it's just you knew they didn't really get it. That it can start to feel kind of lonely, like, am I the only one thinking this stuff? But that's why we love these webinars, is because we want people to know, okay, even though you may not know someone personally that's thinking this or going through this, but there really are others out there. You are not the only one thinking this. And this is how other people persevered through it to reach their dream and hold that meant to be baby. So I'm so touched that you would go into it like that, Allie. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, that answered another question that popped up. So, you know, someone else had answered, how did you cope when the times when you wondered if it will never happen? And I think you covered that so beautifully. Let's talk a little bit about some of the logistics, like what open adoption looks like for you guys today.
Yeah, so when the birth mother and I initially shared contact, I basically straight up asked her, how do you want to visit him, or do you want visits, or do you want to, you know, updates every so often and things like that. And she personally just didn't want visits at the time, and she just wanted to be able to get updates on him. So at this time, she follows me on Facebook, and so does her mother and her twin sister and her other sister, and they are able to just look at his pictures, and they'll like them and comment on them, and that's basically the relationship we have now. But I told her if at any point she, you know, wanted to visit, then I'm open to that. It's not set in stone what, you know, the agreement is. Like, you're the reason I have this baby. Like, I'm not going to shut you out. So as of now, she's just able
to sounds like that's
follow. Are you there?
Oh yeah, sorry, Allie. I was saying, so it sounds like that's enough for her, you know, just knowing that you're available and being able to kind of, it's kind of like looking through a window rather than getting invited in, you know, like I'm comfortable here. Some people would be shocked, like, what, your friends on Facebook? Like, they would feel like that's so personal. I mean, have you had people in your life even that are like, what? Like, who's that girl who likes all your pictures, you know, or whatever? I mean, are there people in your life who understand it?
No one's communicated anything like that to me.
Good.
At all. So, and I don't really even know that they would actually know who she was, except for my close family. And they're so elated that, you know, she's family to us regardless, because she's the reason we have him.
So there was a picture earlier I'm gonna bring this back up, and it actually had like these important dates in his little story. So it had his birth date, and then it said the home date, and then it said your forever date, which is when you finalize your adoption. Um, but there's a 4-week gap between born and home. So some people probably saw that earlier, and they were thinking, "What? It took you 4 weeks to bring him home?" So, what was that like? Because he was born a little bit early, but then why did it take a little bit longer than usual to get back home with him?
So when he was born, we had to spend 3 weeks in the NICU. And once we were out, it took a week to get cleared to cross state lines. So in total, we were in Nevada for 4 weeks, exactly, a month. We came home on his 1-month birthday.
Oh my goodness. So let's talk a little bit about traveling. I mean, you mentioned that you got the call that she was in labor, and then you were on a plane within a matter of hours, which is awesome. So a lot of people want to know, okay, well, yeah, I want to be ready for a last minute thing like that, but I'm a planner. So how much can I do now? And then what should I let go of and just get when I'm there? So how did you juggle that?
So one of the fun things that my husband and I did while we waited, just to give us, something to do, was we got his nursery ready. So we actually had everything in his nursery neutral, the crib and the changing and all of that. We had that already ready. So the only thing, and we had some like neutral clothing, but the only thing we really brought with us out there was our stuff, basically. And the day after he was born, we went to Walmart and just went to town on the things that we needed specifically for the hospital, just clothes and diapers and things like that. And once we found out he needed to be in the NICU, we set up shop in our hotel room and made sure we had more essentials, and we bought as least as we could travel back with, but we also got like the car seat and things like that. And I would just say not to try to overpack, because there's usually a Walmart or Target or some means to get what you need. And so that's my recommendation, is just try to bring as little as possible and get what you need out there.
Yeah. And then part of your story, because it was such a long time, I know there's people probably right now that would ask this. They would say, I don't know that, me or my husband, could be away from home for 4 solid weeks. So in your story, you kind of, that flexibility had to come back in again. So I remember that Jason, he actually had to go back for a little while, right?
Yeah.
So did you stay with Austin by yourself, or did you invite like your mom or friend out to come help you, or how did you juggle that?
So as soon as I found out that we were chosen and that it was going to happen soon, I went ahead and let my bosses know, and I was able to take my maternity leave through my company, because they treat adoption just like having your own biological child. So I just told them that it could happen within the next week. So they were very supportive of me throughout everything as well. And so when we got the call, I just basically text my boss and say, I have to go. And we were close enough that he understood. And so was Jason's boss. He was very understanding. But when we got out there and found out we needed to be there in the NICU, Jason went back to work for a week, and my mom came out to rotate in and out of the NICU so that one of us would always be with him. And I stayed out there in the entire time because I was able to take that maternity leave.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that's something that when people are adopting, they think, but I always wanted my mom to be there. And so what I love is that you found a way for her to be there, but that it wasn't, she flew out with you and there was this grand entourage of people coming in. in those first moments, but rather she came out and was a help to you when it was appropriate. So that did work out to involve her, especially since you were out there longer than expected. But how special that must have been even for her to be the first extended family to get to meet him.
She was waiting for that invitation.
I bet she was. Let's see here. Did you have any concerns or actual difficulties about coming home on an airplane with a newborn?
I think the only difficulties was my anxiety level, because I just did not know what to expect. I was worried, he'd cry the whole time, or, he would disrupt the plane, or that, all the anxiety that you can get with traveling. And he was only 1 month old, but actually he slept the entire time, and it was amazing, and it was basically all in my head. So I felt silly afterwards, but it was a good experience for us.
Well, I think, probably until you actually move through it, most people would wonder, how's that even going to work? Here's a logistic question. Some people might wonder, did you just carry him on a front pack? Did you have to separate yourself from him through security for any reason? Like what was just the actual step-by-step in the airport like with the newborn?
With him, we were very blessed. From the time that we checked in, they made sure they bumped us up to like the first row, and made sure we had like the spacious aisle. And then through security, we had to use the usual protocol of everything getting checked through, but I carried in my arms through the checkpoint, and then held him in my seat the entire way back. So it was very easy, I would say.
Yeah. I think, again, communicating and asking questions, I've never met anyone at an airport who's not willing to help. If you ask questions and you're polite, don't demanding and stuff, but they're always willing. They hear it every day. They see all kinds of different travel. So if you're not sure what to do, say, look, we've got this little guy. Where do we go? And how do we make this as easy as possible? And they'll be probably excited that it's something as easy as a newborn to juggle. So just communication is key. Let's see if there are any other questions here. What did it look like booking a last minute flight? A lot of people have never had to walk through that.
My husband handled that, and luckily he travels a lot for a living, so he has points. But it was 1 o'clock. I was telling y'all it's 1 o'clock our time in the morning, so of course it's hard to just book a flight as soon as possible. But we live near a pretty busy airport in Atlanta, and they had one going out a few hours later, so we just booked it and went. So
yeah. That's something that we talk about on private webinars a lot. So if you're waiting with Lifetime, you've probably heard some tips about planning last minute travel. But one of the biggest tips is just remember that there's usually more than one airport from which you can leave. So if the airport you usually default to doesn't leave for another 24 hours or 12 hours or even 6 hours, but you can drive a different direction and get to another airport that you don't usually use, you may be able to leave sooner. So it's good to just be a little bit open-minded and creative. And then my favorite tip is always, if you are not good at booking travel, you probably have a friend who is. So have someone in your back pocket that you can call at 1 a.m. and say, I'm going to get packing, find us a flight. And they're probably the type of person who just loves that challenge. So I've heard from other families that they kind of do little dry runs, and they'll pretend, on a weekend, like, what if we got a call tonight? Okay, what kind of flights are available? Like, what if the baby's born in LA, or what if the baby's born in Atlanta? What does that look like for us? So some of you may have fun kind of playing the hypothetical booking game. But in the end, it just kind of comes down to just getting where you got to be, which is what Allie and Jason did. This is awesome. It's just flown by. And To all of you listening, and I know Kim's on behind the scenes here, we wanted to give away a couple adoption bracelets, but I'm curious if we even have time to do that. So, Kim, what do you think?
I think if people stay till the end and are interested in winning a pair of adoption bracelets, one for yourself, and Libby and I were thinking, well, Libby, it was your idea, maybe one to gift to a prayer partner. I think that's such a great idea. If you're interested, yes, if you're interested, comment now that you are interested, and then we'll be able to pick a winner.
Okay, that sounds fun. So, Allie,
hey, people are interested.
I'm trying to scroll through some of these photos you sent because it's just so clear to me that, I don't know, I mean, you had never raised a newborn, but it just seems like it came so easily for you. I mean, do you look back, was there any surprises? Like, I've been waiting so long for this baby, and here now I have this child at home. Is there any advice to new parents out there?
I know that it was terrifying at first, just the expectation I wanted to have for myself as a mom, and then just being in the hospital and just the simple act of feeding him or changing his diaper was overwhelming. But it really does, I mean, if you have love in your heart and you want what's best for your child, which you will, then I think it just comes naturally. I mean, you may make a few little mistakes, but not to be hard on yourself, and just do the best you can, because no one's perfect. But I feel like it did come to me. Like, I don't remember being, after the initial maybe first week in the hospital, giving him bath for the first time and things like that. But I think that's every parent, no matter how the baby comes to your life.
Yeah, I think there's always those nerves. What was it like in the hospital? Because some people wonder, is the hospital going to treat me like a new mom? You know, are they going to give me information? Are they going to answer my questions? Or are they going to treat me like an intruder? I mean, what was that like for you as a new mom, spending weeks in the hospital with your little Peanut in the NICU?
I could never say enough kind words about the people in the NICU with me. They were angels. I still am in contact with one of his main NICU nurses, and I actually have a very amazing story, if you have time, about her. She actually adopted a baby that came into the NICU a day after we left, and she messaged me and said that just watching us together, that it was an inspiration for her to start her family that way. And she was single, and she was just an angel, took care of us so well, and just made sure we had all of the moments that any biological mom would. They did not treat us any differently. They treated us so kindly, and were so graceful with us, and it was just an amazing experience for us.
It's just amazing. I mean, have you found this, especially bringing him home? I am amazed how many people start to tell you that they are touched by adoption once they know that you are.
Yeah, I just feel like it's just the biggest blessing ever. I don't know if everyone feels that way when they first, think, do I want to grow with my family with adoption, with maybe the stigma of, someone's giving up their baby, or I'm taking someone's baby, but that's not the case at all. Like, someone's choosing to give their baby the best possible life they can imagine for them, and making sure they choose the right parents and choose a loving family, and then the loving family is taking care of this baby. And it's just the most beautiful process and journey. It's just incredible to go through it. And then I'll have people message me privately and just ask me, like, how did you do this? Like, ask me the emotions of it, and ask me, like, what was the best way to do this? And they just see that there's no difference in the love that I have for him than a biological mother would have for their own child. And I think they just see that this is an amazing blessing. Like, it's not a taboo thing anymore. It's something that beautiful.
Amen to that. I always say it's unlike any relationship that you will ever have. It's just so unique, and so it's just so deeply personal for everyone involved. And like your whole story, Allie, tonight has just reflected this beautiful perspective of how your journey was not all about you. And you probably don't think about it like that all the time, but that's what I've heard in it tonight. Like every hurt, every loss, every hope and dream that you wondered, am I ever going to get there, was all leading not only to that little boy, but also, I mean, look now, that nurse, and then to his birth mother and birth family, and then who else may be touched even tonight just because you have this heart to share it and encourage other people with your testimony. So it's just like I think you said earlier, it's a bigger picture, and I can't thank you enough for coming on to share just your little view of that bigger picture. It's been a great time.
Well, thank y'all so much for listening to me this long and for having me. It's really been an honor.
So we are going to pick a random winner. Kim tallied up 30 people that entered. So if you're like ready to hit the click on entering our little giveaway, you better do that now, because I'm about to hit a random number. And let's see. Oh, I got to change it up to. Whoops. All right, Kim, it chose number 8. So count up or down number 8, and that's our winner.
Okay, just a second. 1,
so Allie,
2, 3,
Allie,
4.
Kim's counting out loud.
Okay, got one. Easiest that way, Libby. And it is Tammy B. B as in boy.
Oh,
Tammy,
yay.
you have one. So let's make a note, and we will get those out to you.
Perfect. So, Allie, as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to share before we close out?
I just want to encourage everyone listening just to keep up your faith and hope that it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in the most amazing time. And it may even be when you least expect it. And once it does happen, that you will literally know no other way of how it could have happened, because it will truly be a meant to be moment and a godsend. And honestly, if anybody wants to find me on Facebook, I'm more than open to answer any questions or just be there to listen to you. If there's anything you want to share. And then just a few like tips that I did during the wait, since it can be very emotional. I made a playlist of like all of the encouraging songs that really uplifted me. I kept a journal like to keep up with my feelings and just to have a venting, able to let it all out. And want to just find fun hobbies that you really enjoy doing and like get the nursery ready. It's just so hopeful when you see it all come together, and just like imagine it being. I used to just be in his room and imagine it, like him being on my chest, or, you know, me putting him in bed. And I just like really held out the faith that I knew it was going to happen, but it would have to happen in God's timing. And just reach out to someone that you really trust to help you get through all of the emotions, because it is a tough emotional journey as well. So I just thank y'all for listening, and I hope that this helped anyone tonight. That's my ultimate goal.
I think
if you need
have.
anything, I'm definitely here to, you know, pass this webinar if anybody wants to reach out to me directly.
Well, there are several comments just thanking you and telling you how this was so timely and so helpful and just what they needed to hear. So I think you hit your goal. And, you know, Allie is one of several of Lifetime families that is happy to talk with you one-on-one. So if you're thinking tonight, yeah, there was, you know, something really resonated in her story I'd love to ask her more about, or, you know, you want to connect with her and take her up on that offer, you can always reach out to us, and we'd be happy to connect you both. and help you have that resource too, because that kind of peer support, it's a very unique and precious blessing. So we want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. If you have any questions or feedback at all after hearing Allie's story, or you want to learn more about Lifetime, or if you're already living with Lifetime and you want to hear more stories like this, we love all kinds of feedback and questions to help us prepare webinars in the future for you. So I hope all of you have a really great evening, and thanks again for joining us. And Allie, thank you for taking time away from your family tonight to share.
Thank y'all.
We will talk with all of you again soon, and just keep an eye on your email or on social media for the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Have a great night.